Hey everybody, I'm Eddie Starr, and this is the College of Rock and Roll Knowledge. Class is now in session. This is where the music and culture that shaped a generation live on, and my own path through the world of rock and roll. Well, hello.
That's a bad tone.
What is?
Where I work, they all calls start with that statement, and people get defended.
That's a lovely thought. So what's happening?
Oh, just trying to get the Christmas stuff done.
Well, that's cool. I see you have a guitar behind you there.
Yeah, an old acoustic I inherited from my father-in-law. I didn't literally inherit it. I just kind of took it home.
Oh, well, so I guess...
permission, of course, yeah. And at the time, this is a classical guitar, right? Nylons. But he had steel strings on it. I don't know how it survived.
Wow.
Sounds great. At least, it makes me sound good.
Well, that's all that matters, right?
I play on it sometimes.
Yeah.
I'm a weirdo. I like my ukuleles better.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to be a rock star, right? So,
Well.
Entertaining. That's all good.
So what are you listening to, Dave?
These days, you mean?
Yeah.
Gosh. More or less, kind of what the show turns me on to at times. And that I'm enjoying so much, but most of the stuff I'm into these days is dated.
Yeah. Well,
I like that old time rock.
Well,
so you can hear me okay, right?
Oh yeah. No, I can hear you fine.
Audio alert on my system here, and okay, that's good to know.
Yeah, no, you sound great. I think there's a difference between Zoom and Skype,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Skype was a bomb.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to it. When I first started having people on the podcast, I used Skype. So anyway, so much with that.
Mm-hmm.
But so what were you guys playing this week? What's your focus?
Playing this week. Oh, we've gone away from, going over a certain genre or a period of time or anything. So it's all pretty random. I mean, we did have a small tribute to Mike Nesmith.
Oh, the Monkees.
Yeah.
Who could forget the Monkees and watching them every Saturday morning? Was it Saturday morning?
I don't remember when, what days I watched it. I just know back when I was a wee lass living in Long Beach, it was on, and we caught it here and there. Yeah, that was our general introduction to rock and roll.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I watched the Monkees. It's sort of funny though how time changes things and the way things are looked at.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about this with Charles on the previous podcast, and I was talking about contextual curation, like for instance, in Spotify, if you go and, you see those years pop up, right? And they'll put all that, supposed music from that specific year, but they really don't, it's really not an accurate view of the year from one aspect,
Well, it depends on
because some of the stuff they add albums and things from and how they're looked from that year, but how they're looked at now as opposed to how they were looked at then.
Yeah, I mean, because I'm sure it's going to throw in Whitney Houston and Lionel Richie and
or maybe
like
maybe it would just maybe
I won't say anything bad about it, but it's that wasn't where I was, right?
Yeah, but it was like I guess you could say maybe it'd be like the the Grammys where the same 5 people every year went.
Yeah.
Or something like that. But I just wish that sort of it'd give an idea to people about what was really happening. And if you look at, for instance, like with the Monkees, the Monkees really weren't looked at the way they were looked at now in one aspect.
Well, it's got a nostalgia thing to it now, but if I were the person I am now, but living at that time period, it's like, hey, come on, they were the first boy band.
Yeah. But I mean, they were really,
Pale Imitators or whatever, and just a TV creation. Okay, yeah, they were all that, but they also, they got good songwriters for them, no doubt about it. And they even did some of their own stuff in there, which was actually pretty decent.
Yeah.
And on a family trip, a while ago, we were driving back from Santa Barbara, put it on Spotify for the Monkees, and I was hearing all kinds of stuff that I just never dived into before. It's like, man, this is good stuff. Now my kiddo's a fan, and they live on in other ways.
Yeah. That's very true. It's just funny how that all comes together, in terms of, oh, well, they're a gimmick, and, on one hand you'd hear all that, and then you have sort of like
a TV network Beatles spinoff.
Yeah. Or like
I thought that for the longest time, but I saw pictures recently where they're hanging out with the Beatles. If they can hang out with John Lennon, I think I get the impression he was quite quite hard on people that he didn't like, and crushed people, like was it the Turtles or some other LA band? There's a little movie about them. Even they finally go there to meet the Beatles, and John is just rude and insulting to them. And apparently it's based on a true story. So, if he could be cool with the Monkees, there was something there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny though, you never really saw anything after that like that,
Mm-hmm.
in terms of like a weekly TV show. And I mean, I'd say most kids who grew up in the 70s, the Monkees were like a huge thing, with like Tiger Beat and Sean Cassidy.
Yeah. Oh, I played Andy Gibb on last week's show.
Oh, yeah. That's right. Shadow dancing?
I think, I heard it in the car. Somebody in a traffic jam on the freeway I was in. I heard somewhere, it's like, I hear shadow dancing.
Yeah, that was a really good song though. He was really good.
Uh-huh.
I mean, back in the day, I probably wouldn't have admitted that.
No, never.
Yeah.
You're way too cool for that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
But now, we could, enjoy it, shake our butts, and, we're too old to care now.
Well, speak for yourself, Dave. I don't buy into that whole,
Okay, too wise to care now. How about that?
Yeah, or maybe the world has changed, right?
Well, it certainly has.
It's not like there aren't any of those real sort of shared stories. It's sort of like everybody's in their own bubble and digging what they're digging, right?
Yeah.
I was listening to, it's funny because I was listening to Alex Chilton.
Huh, okay.
Yeah, which is really sort of weird, but I decided to, I've heard him. I remember the Replacements had a song, I think, about him, and he was on it. But I had no idea that he was in the Box Tops and sang that song, that huge hit, The Letter.
Huh.
from the 70s. So that was sort of like my tripped out thing.
Yeah.
You know, I knew he had written September Girls.
Yeah. Yeah, he's one of those guys who stayed true to his form and never had major success outside of that, really, right? But he has the respect of a lot of great independent artists.
That is true. Well, I mean, REM and a lot of those, you know, sort of, I guess you could say he championed sort of like an alternative thing in the 70s or whatever. But he was, I mean, not, was it Big? No, it was the Box Tops who had multiple #1 hits. So
yeah,
that was pretty trippy to find that out.
Back in the day, that was just another file, you know, in the record store under B.
Right.
Got it. Yeah.
Right. But
a little wiser, man.
So in terms of your show, Press Play, what are you guys doing in terms of, you're not doing artists or specific genre, you said, right?
Yeah, we're very,
Are you just
about this? It's just very general. You never know what you're going to get, you know?
Yeah.
We're just like being, we had a period where we were doing, you know, focusing on a genre and sharing, you know, what we can on whatever from garage to, we did funk and soul, you know, we did 60s rock, we did, you know, where it could come up with. And then we thought, okay, let's stop struggling with the ideas of that. Let's just, you know, be random, start pushing the requests more and just, you know, I think that's our niche, is just being kind of all over the place. Doesn't get a niche audience at all. You know, I think Charles's shows, you know, without his are just easier to sell on other rebroadcasters that he's using, you know, because he's doing specifically shoegaze. And
right, I didn't even know what that was.
Well, you missed a good era there, man.
Yeah, I didn't know what that was.
Yeah,
shoegaze, or what else does he call it? There's some other thing he was talking, shoegaze, and I forget. But anyway, I was tripped out because I had never really heard any of that before.
Really? No, My Bloody Valentine?
No, I never was into them. I was always, I guess you could say that I really haven't changed that much in terms of, you know.
You're like straight ahead rock and roll, pretty much.
Just straight ahead rock and roll, and that's it. And so, you know, I guess it's rather limiting.
It was fun for me. That was just at a time in my life where I was, just trying to break out in music and get into more heady, spacey stuff. We'll just put it that way. You know, so while grunge was happening, you know, me and my group of friends at the time, you know, we were going to Grateful Dead shows and, but also into, you know, just other good music in general. And when I heard My Bloody Valentine for the first time through the record store, I mean, it was just like, I just immediately made tapes for everybody, right, to date ourselves. And I mean, yeah, and we're all just instant fans. And just, you know, I remember one time we saw them at the Roxy twice in one night. And we just, you know, we rushed in after the first show, rushed to the box office and, you know, managed to get tickets, you know, by some miracle. I guess there were some cancellations or something, and got right back in and just, you know, we just grabbed a table and just owned the place.
Wow.
At one point, we were, I shouldn't say this on the show, but passing around a J inside the Roxy and nobody bothered us.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I never understood, honestly, your Grateful Dead fixation. That was sort of like the weirdest thing.
I don't try to push it on anybody. You know, it's like you either like it or you don't.
Oh, I know that, but I just really could not understand it. Yeah, it's really like, I don't know why.
I get it, but you had to be there.
Yeah, no, I know.
You just had to be there. And
that was really funny. It really was funny to me. I guess in some aspect, because I thought, like, God, he's gone off and listening to like his parents' music.
No, that wouldn't be my parents were older.
Yeah, so you're the youngest.
My mom is
right?
Elvis generation.
But you're the youngest, right?
Yeah.
So do you think is that how you were able to sort of formulate, get such a wealth of knowledge of music? Like you always knew stuff that people didn't know. You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
You did.
Okay.
And I guess maybe there's some, do you think, but were your older siblings into music? I know Andy was, but.
Yeah, I think he got the bug early on, with Kiss and things like that, and they were like, at that age in the 70s, they were everything. They were like, everything from a comic book superhero to action adventure stars, but they play guitars with some rockin' tunes, right? And whether you like it or not. But see, the young kids, that's, amazing stuff. So
right.
That started his interest. We do have an older sister. She's got like 10, 11 years on me. And I remember just, her being into, that's where I first heard Queen and Aerosmith, when they were good, when Aerosmith was still on drugs, right? Early Aerosmith, things like that. Bad Company, Led Zeppelin, of course. And, just seeing at that time, I guess that would be like early 70s, pre-75 even. Her just kind of dragging us along to, some teenager gatherings that they had nearby. And just seeing that whole funky rock and roll stoner culture, everything you see in the movies, probably, about the 70s. I mean, it's like, imagine being like 5 years old and being walked through that, like, what the hell is this? But, just from there and her always having the radio on and, us kind of adapting into that over the years. And then coincidentally, eventually settling into a neighborhood with a great record store, just hop over the wall. We got spoiled.
Yeah, that's really something, because you really did know a lot. I mean, you still do, but it's just that you always knew what was happening, or, what had happened, which was sort of, thinking about it from now, where, there wasn't, everything wasn't so out there.
Back in the days where you had to dig and find the good stuff. And, if you happen to have or see a friend with a cool shirt on, or not even a friend yet, right? But it's like, okay, they got, he's got a Iron Maiden shirt. Okay, well, he must be cool.
Yeah. Or going to record conventions and.
Yeah, if you happen to see anybody you knew there.
Yeah, but a lot of times people would, if they knew you were, if they knew you were a fan, then they would like really, they'd have stuff to sell you.
Push it on you, yeah.
Yeah.
Tell you, hey, look what I got.
Yeah. Yeah, I met quite a few people who were, who I became very loyal. They sucked me in with, all the stuff that I couldn't find. So that is, that was a different way.
Yeah, now it's so different. I mean, if you don't need to physically get your hands on all the material, you can still hear it all.
Yeah. And that is a great thing.
Everything's out there and available. But those who want to collect will collect, and will find their people and their kinship with their friends by that. I'm seeing that in my own kid right now.
Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, she'll tell you she knows more than I do now.
Really?
She's already got the opinions, right? I guess it's in the blood. She just knows better than me now what's cool and what's not.
So what does she say is cool?
She's all over the place. This morning, if you have the, some, I don't know, Spotify channel on, but, her listening to Alanis Morissette and the Cardigans, and she likes Blondie a lot. But then she likes Fleetwood Mac even, but
wow.
She was watching, but last week I caught her, she's watching a biography on Ella Fitzgerald and then listening to her after that. And she likes Louis Armstrong, but then also the Ramones and Rolling Stones. And I mean, there's some pop stuff that she likes too,
That's really interesting, though.
Yeah, it's just all over the place.
No, that's really cool.
Picking and choosing from a different point of view than we ever had.
Yeah, well, ours was very limited. But then again, it's sort of like, she's your daughter, so she's going to have a different. If you were blessed enough to have a parent, which is sort of funny because I always told people, like, who would want to listen to records with their parents? Or I think about, when we were growing up, going over to your house and just like saying, hey, and then going upstairs and shutting the door and listening to, whoever we were listening to and chatting and stuff. It was very different, but everybody was in, we wouldn't have thought to listen to Louis Armstrong at
or at the record store even. Sometimes we just listen to old stuff just to, I don't know, be cheeky and tease it and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, when people used to come in, Elvis, right?
Yeah. Or Frank Sinatra, Elvis, and they just, it'd be playing and then suddenly it'd go, they change the speed to 78.
Yeah.
Just to have fun and get a rise out of people. But you also learn to appreciate things that way too.
Yeah.
I mean,
well, I'm listening to Alex Chilton.
Well, there you go. Finally, huh?
Yeah, to pop, I guess you could say.
Well, you got to branch out of the rock and roll sphere every now and then.
Yeah.
Okay.
I still am. I know we talked about it in the podcast that never was, but it's still with the Stones. I was listening to Joe Rogan and he was talking about, he went to see him and, he talked about how great they were and what a bummer it was, Charlie Watts was gone. But that is such a huge loss because it's sort of like the Stones as they were. It's sort of like you always, in a way, knew they would be there. You know what I mean? They're like the Forrest Gump of rock and roll. Like, no, whatever era you go through, the Stones will be there and they'll be doing an album, And I think with Charlie gone like that,
it'd be an album that very few people really care about, but okay, they're touring, great.
Yeah, but I mean, it's sort of like that whole, it gives you sort of like everything is going to be okay, or, like they're always there type thing.
If they're backing around after their latest clash of whatever. It's like, okay, all is well in the universe. Keith and Dean are getting along again.
Yeah.
They were. Yeah, one of them.
Now, when did you see them?
Steel Wheels tour. And,
that was
that's at
98
at the Coliseum. Yeah, that would be about 98, I guess. At the Coliseum with Guns N' Roses opening up, where they pretty much broke up on stage. Yeah. I mean, I guess Axl was pissed off at the drummer for being high again. And, so normal chaos there. But, me and a friend, he kind of nagged me along to go and stuff. I was like, I don't want to shatter my illusion of the Stones. I mean, even then, it's like they hadn't had a good album in a decade. And, I love the Stones. I don't want to not like them by hearing them play this newer stuff and whatever. And, before they went on, before the show started, I was even contemplating just walking out. So I figured, okay, I'm here. I paid the money. Let's go. And, I was prepared to just diss the heck out of them, but they were good. I mean, very impressive. And they did, a good selection of old stuff. And Mick would probably tell you reluctantly, it's like, hey, we got to, well, he even said it on the stage. Hey, we have to play the new stuff, you guys.
Yeah.
It can't be all old. So he knows, I think he would confess, their newer material just doesn't cut it compared to the older material. But, they can still put on a great show.
Yeah, but
which is amazing. I even saw footage of him, recently on his last tour. And, he didn't slow down. He hasn't slowed down his moves at all. I mean, he's still the same person on stage, and Mick is still Mick. It's like, damn, how did these guys just, get those superpowers? They're the ones who started doing drugs. The rock stars on doing heroin and shit like that. Way back then.
Well, that was sort of the irony of Charlie Watts going
he was
first.
a good one.
Because he was the one who lived a very, honorable and clean life.
Yeah. Well,
so it's just,
he was one of the co-founders of the band, and he also knew a good gig when he saw it. Obviously, you could swallow your pride a little bit because you're going to be making millions and millions and millions off of every tour. Yeah, but he was a class act. He didn't get involved. He didn't live the rock star life at all. Just enjoyed the people and kept to himself and did his own thing when he could. Like you saw his jazz band, right? Or heard them?
No, I never saw. I heard that he was doing that. Yeah, I never liked jazz at all.
Come on.
Never did. That's the one thing. I had a drummer who played jazz and would do jazz things, and he invited me to come sing. And I passed out in the back of the bar or club. It was like a little place or whatever, but it just never did anything for me. I didn't really understand it. So that was that.
Well, that's another thing, you got to be there and in the right frame of mind, I guess.
Yeah. Well,
when it's done well, I love it, but it could go bad real quick.
Well, I mean, jazz, you have to be very technical. You have to be very technical, and not only that, but it's a certain, you have to have a certain mindset for it. And I just never really I just never really got it. I mean, some of the singers and people that did jazz I thought were cool, but it's not something I really understood.
Well, you got to work on that, my friend.
Yeah, maybe one day. One day.
Yeah, but do you think early Miles Davis, John Coltrane, just focus on the 40s?
No, I've heard them. I couldn't do. I'm not into it. Just doesn't do anything for me. But what about? Do you think that the Stones or like any of these other bands? Do you think that maybe because they start at a certain point, that maybe they are snapshots of that specific time period, or maybe they, I know people look at them, they represent a specific time period, but it's sort of like, with their longevity and, there's always this great mystery, not so much mystery, but, the 60s was looked at as, in a certain way culturally. And, with them coming out of that, do you think that that is has some sort of, what do I want to say?
One era that they're remembered for?
Yeah.
No, they go into, they can be recalled in different eras just by living through it all practically.
Oh, I know that. I know they can be recalled, but I mean, when you go back to a specific era after that, you know, you look at them in different ways, just like people look at the Beatles. You know, they look at the Beatles as pretty much as one snapshot because they sort of dissolved after, right?
They didn't live long.
But you still have people who look at it, who like the early Beatles, but don't like the later part, you know, when they got all psychedelic and into Indian music and stuff. And
yeah, it all happened within a 5-year time frame too. So,
right.
50 years ago, and, you know, it is what it is. It's all, you know, that's the 60s to me, because you have that great pop in the beginning and then the psychedelic, which, hey, 60s were very much psychedelic too.
Yeah.
So, you know, they fit that in a nutshell. Whereas the Stones, you know, they went through changes. I mean, you know, I like the early Stones particularly, you know, with Brian Jones. You know, there's just something about that has, you know, that whole stereotype of the swinging 60s London and everything. And, you know, they embodied that completely. But after Brian Jones left and they got Mick Taylor in, you know, they were a different band, and probably, you know, at that point becoming, you know, living up to the moniker of the greatest rock and roll band. It was a whole different era for them because they were peaking as better songwriters, and, you know, just had their licks and chops, all, you know, just a whole new set of influences. You know, they weren't as clean and polished and as, you know, the earlier black and white era of them, because, you know, just rock and roll in general was changing, and they changed with it and they led it to a large extent. You know, and then, you know, that went on for a while, and even into the Ron Wood years. But, you know, but then they just kind of dried up, in my opinion. You know,
well, I still
as far as creating, you know, good songs and, you know, just being that band that had that magic. I think they just kind of got into a formula and got complacent and just became the band we've known them mostly for is, okay, we'll put out an album every 3 or 4 years and do a big tour and then do it all, you know, take some vacation time and do it all again later.
Yeah, but I also think that you have to sort of, you know, going back to that climate that they came out of really sort of developing really the basics sort of rock and roll, and, you know, a very innovative period. And then, you know, sort of, you know, into a just very sort of, I guess you could say, yeah, if you're the, you know, if you're the one who forges the way, then I think people are always going to look at you different and have different expectations, you know? And I think they had such a great body of work between the time they formed. Was it 19?
Excuse me.
Bless you. Or was it the late 50s, 50 something, or was it early 60s when that I'm not sure of, but I know that whole period from the 60s and all the music that they put out then up until probably the late 70s or so, you had a lot of really innovative music. And I mean, I don't think, you know, most bands can't even carry that after one album, you know?
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
I mean, you got to sort of give them a pass for that, because they did have so many great albums. And even, you know, in their, you know, in this time, since probably the 80s or 90s, most of the records that I haven't had a favorite Stones album, but I've had like songs of theirs that I've really liked.
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty much it, as opposed to liking, you know, I mean, of course, Exile on Main Street is like a masterpiece, and Goat's Head Soup as well.
Yeah, I like Let It Bleed.
My favorite
too.
What?
You have Let It Bleed?
Oh yeah, no, that is like, yeah, those records are like great. Even if, you know, no matter what criticisms may have been leveled at them, I mean, to me, it's like those are like Godhead, as Rodney would say, right?
Yeah. Well, it's rough to have longevity in music in any genre. I think the only person who really mastered that was Bowie, and he got really close to being complacent too. But but he was putting out great music till the very end.
Yeah, that's true. But if you look at his period,
and his style was changing quite a bit. You can't remember him by one era.
Right. But you have to look at him. I mean, like when we were growing up, Bowie, the whole Let's Dance thing and how he reinvented himself, that was interesting. But it was really all those songs he had done in Germany with Iggy Pop, sort of rehashed, I guess you could say, in a way. And I just think it's interesting because he continued to, I would say Bowie really throughout his career, even if you look at that period in the 80s when he was doing, the whole Let's Dance and Blue Jean thing, that still was.
That was his low point, but in my opinion.
Yeah. But from one aspect, it was his commercial
peak. Yeah.
I guess it's like.
It was a video era too. And he was always a master of that.
Yeah.
So, he managed to kind of roll along, rake it in those years, but, not his greatest era, but he made up for it after that.
No, he did. The Tin Machine.
That was good too. Yeah. Wasn't even thinking of that one, but yeah.
No, those were awesome records with the Sales Brothers. I always loved them. What a rhythm section. But if, because of The Idiot and Lust for Life, where they did all the playing on those records along with Ricky Gardner, who's amazing. But that's pretty trippy.
Yep. And too many dead people in that conversation.
Well,
it happens.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, imagine when the Stones are finally gone once and for all. It'll be, kind of that shock like when, Tom Petty died. I was really surprised by that, but also Bowie, of course. And I was like, wow, a world without Bowie? No.
Yeah, I know. That was really, really huge. Bowie gone, leaving, Prince, Tom Petty. That was really wild.
Throw Michael Jackson in there, but
yeah, that was.
Don't have his records.
Yeah, it's funny. I was listening to what's that guy that used to be on MTV? Adam. Oh, he was a VJ, Dave.
Yeah, you know what?
Adam Curry. Adam Curry.
Okay, you're talking about early days. I didn't have it until MTV till the 90s.
Yeah, I was listening to him on Megyn Kelly's podcast, and he was talking about some tripped out thing about that no one really ever investigated completely that Michael Jackson's death and stuff, and that he had a lot of enemies within the music industry for owning that ATV publishing and stuff, which was pretty trippy.
Oh yeah, and he was saying some.
Yeah, and then he and it really sort of surprised me. And then he said that he had mentioned it to some like producer that he used to on one of the cable networks he used to go on, and after he mentioned it, that they would never have him on again.
Wow.
Oh, it was pretty weird, But I thought, that is very true, but it is very trippy, how all that stuff sort of comes out in a very nonchalant way, sort of like questions, you know what I mean?
Yeah, maybe they did make some veiled threats at their bosses, that are the real money makers of the world.
Well, I'm just talking about.
I know he's went after Sony, executives big time, and he's hating on Sony. I think,
right, but I'm talking about specifically, like they had that doctor there doing all that stuff, and that stuff was like, that is an out of this world story in terms of that. And so when he said that, I thought, wow, man, that's pretty trippy.
Mm-hmm.
for someone of his stature, who was on MTV and, saw a lot of the stuff that was going on behind the scenes and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, I'm sure it gets ugly with a lot of people. I mean, there's a lot of drugs.
That is for sure.
Michael told you he didn't do them. Yeah, he had his administered professionally. Only difference for everybody else, man. Especially in the 70s and 80s, there was mountains of that shit going around.
Yeah, I would extend it all the way through the 90s.
Well, even into the 2000s, perhaps.
Yeah, it depends upon where you were. It's like if you're in that moment, and not only that, it depends upon what you're looking for, right? And who you're looking for, and where you are, and it'll find you.
Because there are a lot of people that want to get close to you, and they'll offer you up anything and everything.
Yeah, but I mean that is pretty much standard fare, at least in Hollywood. It was for a long time.
Yep.
Long time. So with press play, so now you said you're doing like just sort of like what would they call it? Just a mix of different things and nothing specific.
Yeah, just general eclectic, I mean, we could be doing 60s pop, to, garage, or it's just everything. And, indie. I mean, you give me an hour just to play anything on Spotify and you're going to hear it anyway. I'm going to play, I might throw on some old Stones, some Wilco, some, something as cheesy as the Knack, even though coincidentally, Charles played a Knack song last week that I wasn't familiar with.
Oh yeah.
How I only knew that one album.
Yeah.
But they were, already around before that even. Who knew? But, yeah. I mean, well, that's just me. I stopped listening. You knew me in my metal / punk / goth days.
Yeah, I guess so. Right? That was, but I mean, you were really eclectic then, because on one hand you had Dawkins, and then you were listening to the Residents, and then you were listening.
I remember one girl from high school. She saw me at because I was into Prince. Friend and I went to see Jesse Johnson one night. He was the guitarist for The Time.
Yeah.
And, so we're, minding our business, and this girl walks like, "What are you doing here?" like almost upset that, she just saw me as this heavy metal guy, which I was beyond that. I didn't see myself as a heavy metal guy anymore. It's like, she's like, "What are you doing here?" It's like, "Hey, I like the music." It's like, what? Couldn't believe it, but so it was.
But I never thought, but you were never really a heavy metal guy.
Earlier on in high school, junior high into early high school I was, but I don't know, just got bored of it after a while and moved on. I just, started getting into other things and hanging out with different people. There are more people that are just more on my level, I guess.
Like deadhead hippies.
Yeah. And
or the Residents. I'll never forget the Residents of the hippies, because the Residents, I remember seeing, well, no one knows what they look like, and they have eyeballs on. And it was just like,
hey man, to this day that's still as cutting edge as it gets.
Yeah, I know, Gabe. It was just too trippy for me to out there.
Yeah, well, you need to that's music for those who experiment with things.
I know. But those were really, I mean, or what is it? The Cockatoo Twins?
Cocteau Twins, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still love them. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Although I don't really remember. I
remember it for people as fairy music.
Yeah.
Not in a gay way, just literally composed by Tinkerbell and people. I don't know. It's just really out there and weird, but in the right headspace, I'll just leave it at that. In the right headspace, it's, just wonderful. I just dig it. I don't know anybody else outside of the friends I had then who appreciate them now. It's rare to meet somebody who would, but they're out there.
Yeah.
I just love that band. And they go back to that era. Bauhaus, Residents, Cocteau Twins, Prince.
Yeah.
The Cult.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. They're two great albums. Their first two albums, right? Aren't those the ones that everybody loves? What's the first one?
Love is the one they're most known for.
Yeah.
And then from there afterward, they kind of just started going into sounding like AC/DC. They were still good, but I lost interest by then. But then they had one album before Love that was really good, but not as popular. And then before that, they were another band, technically. I mean, different name.
Well, everybody loves that song about Edie Sedgwick.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I was bored of them by then.
They play it a lot.
But I still love that Love album. I'll throw on some tunes from that every now and then for nostalgia. Reminds me of going to clubs and girls in long boots and short skirts. Still drives me crazy.
It's pretty cool.
It was a different time.
Well, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what time. I mean, you say what you say, right?
Mm-hmm. But yeah, no, the Grateful Dead I didn't get into the hippie thing till much later.
That was in the early 90s.
Okay, well, it wasn't high school anyway.
That wasn't. It was the early 90s. Yeah. Only way I have that marker is because that's when I went to that party you and Andy had. And it was so jarring.
Yeah.
Talk about an experience like, what happened?
I had gone by.
Yeah. It was pretty.
Yeah, I drove by that place recently.
Oh, really?
I want to take a look at it again because I know they gutted the whole building and then rebuilt it with a neat balcony and stuff. It's like, damn. Yeah, really cool. But it still looks the same on the outside. You wouldn't know that it had been rebuilt.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a fun time.
Yeah.
Long Beach in the early 90s was, it was a neat time. I mean, it still is for people. I got a cousin who's living out there now, and they got a great bar culture and an arts district and all that. And,
wow.
They got a good record store there. So.
Yeah, I guess all the essentials, right?
Yeah. It's got its bohemian life. Yeah, it still rocks.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well.
Anywho,
yeah, you have to get going, right?
Oh, yeah, I gotta do some Christmas shopping, for Christmas. Started to get set up this morning with, putting the Christmas lights on the house, and it's time to replace them. Let's just put it that way. When you can break the plastic with your hand, it's time to go.
Right. Well, what about, are you going to be giving lots of gifts of music to people?
Well, my kiddo, she's got LPs coming.
Well, that's cool.
One of them actually was on her list, but it's also probably, if not the first, the second LP I ever bought. And it was also the first CD I ever bought when those came out a little later on. But the Rolling Stones, Hot Rocks.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was pretty much everybody who was born in the 70s. That was their first Rolling Stones album.
Yeah.
Although
I know I got it.
Will admit it.
Yeah. I got it in the wake of Some Girls. And my sister was living with us at that time, and she had that LP, so I didn't need to buy that. But, just on a whim one day, I thought, okay, well, my sister buys records, my brother buys records. Let me buy, okay, I like the Rolling Stones, I'll get Hot Rocks. That's just the one I found because it had, a compilation. So, it's a great compilation, 2 albums, of material. And, so.
Well, that was sort of the basis. Yeah, that was sort of the basis of like how you sort of formulated what type of Stones fan you were in a way.
Yeah. So it's neat to see my kid, with that on her list. So I saw that and there was no argument. It's like, yeah, you're getting that.
That's cool. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll probably have to crash and sit in her room while she's not there and enjoy it myself. Listening to it on LP form for the first time in decades.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
Need to invest in a proper stereo system myself. I have the basics of it, but I need to get a turntable and some good speakers. And go down that rabbit hole one more time.
I know. I have to get a new turntable. I still have my records, but I don't have anything to play them on.
Yeah, me too.
I have to get a new CD player too. I have a CD player, but I need to get a new one.
Yeah, I got my CDs in the garage. They just sit in there and collect dust. Because I'm just not so much the audiophile anymore.
Yeah.
And, I could just put it on my phone and Bluetooth
on
speaker.
Spotify.
Yeah.
It's like what's his friend of mine says, it's like having a trillion songs all in your pocket. And he's like a big proponent of, digital and stuff like that. But which is cool. But I think that
it's great for the consumer. Well, I say that with air quotes, right? But it's not so good for the artist.
And it's not also good for the fan either, because like, as I was explaining to someone who was about to get rid of a lot of their CDs and stuff, I said, you really love that album. What if one day Spotify or the label pulls that album off Spotify and you can't stream it anymore? Then what will you do?
Uh-huh.
I said, this whole idea, I still think that, basically, if you're just looking to, have an experience that whether a CD is still a great value, they're like, what, $6 now? They're very cheap.
Mm-hmm. True.
And so it's like, it's better to have a copy of that, or even like with the whole streaming Netflix thing. It's like DVDs are still a much better value, I think, because then you always have it.
Yeah, because what if the cloud system goes down?
Yeah, or what if they just decide to play that whole game? Of like, oh, we're going to pull it out and not, sell it anymore, type thing. Then you'll have what we went through. Remember, scouring the used section and bugging people.
Yeah, I don't see that really happening, but the potential is there. There could be
oh, who knows? It's like
an attack with an electromagnetic pulse that takes down, the grid, but at least
that's sort of like Austin Powers, though.
Or at least computer systems, right? And take down the cloud.
Yeah, that's true. But
AWS was down last week, right? And,
right, but they also
a whole lot.
Right, but they also put things up by what is really popular. So for instance, if you like really old movies, then you really need to go to like a channel like, Turner Classic Movies or something, because they don't really put in a lot of old movies or a lot of, a lot of stuff that you really want to see. Of course they're going to put what's hot. I understand that, but that's where I think like having a DVD or having a CD, or if it's available on vinyl, getting on that is a smart thing.
Yeah. And, 20, 30, 50 years from now,
right.
Yeah. Your kids or whomever, might end up with that and be very, very grateful.
That's very true.
Yeah.
And on that note, we'll end it there because I know you have to go Christmas shopping. And Dave is going to send me a list this week.
Oh.
Of all of whatever songs he wants to put on for this episode. And maybe he'll even find some Christmas gems. And of course, you should definitely check out every Friday night. It's 7 p.m. Eastern, right? 7 p.m. Pacific. 7 Pacific. I get mixed up with all this. So it's 7 p.m. Pacific, 10 p.m. Eastern. And you can go to Google and figure out wherever, you are in the world, what time that is, because I'm not going to do that. But you should check out his show. It is the best radio on the internet.
There's a Facebook page for the show, Press Play with Dave and Charles.
And that's a great thing.
That and like it. Just give it a like. You'll get updates for
and on top of that,
live stream, and then the audio stream is available after the fact too. So
right, and then you can also go and they also have merchandise. So we'll put a link to all of those things, and you should support.
Buy.
Yeah, especially Christmas right now, right? Give a Press Play shirt.
Yeah.
I have a cool Press Play shirt, and it's great, and it's cool, and it's got a great
cool. 70s nostalgic radio vibe to it.
Yeah, and everybody will ask you questions
Buy it for your
about
friends
the shirt. Yeah. And they'll fawn over how cool you are by wearing it. So anyway, I'm just going to say, what?
Say, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. And thank you for your time. And we'll thank everybody for liking, sharing, and clicking the bell if you're on YouTube. And now you can listen to this podcast on all the major platforms. So please give it a rating and share it with your friends, family, everyone.
Yeah,
Thanks,
force
Dave.
it in their cars. Make it so that they can only play your show.
Yeah, that would be cool. And we'd put in all of our music, right? That would be me. Can only play these songs. Otherwise, you're out.
Joe Jett again.
I know. Remember, this was I Hate Myself for Loving You. No. Or Generation X, Untouchable. All right, Dave, go shopping.
All right, Dave.
Thank you. Eddie Starr's The College of Rock and Roll Knowledge is a production of Ton Up Incorporated. Copyright 2021 Ton Up Incorporated.